Episode 9 is not going to be your typical episode today. I just want to sit down and chat through all of my thoughts in the middle, more towards the later part of this training block. Reality is, life is nuts right now between family, work, and I don't know, my physical well-being. This past week was a doozy. We were coming off of our first documentary screening. It was just wild. So I actually told Cyrus, hey, let's not actually film anything from this week. Let's just take a break and we can just talk about the week. Still have, iPhone photos and footage here and there, but I do want to chat through all of the workouts I did just to start out. So you're all caught up on the progression and what it looks like. As every single week has gone, this training block started off with 2 easy 11-mile runs on Monday and Tuesday. One was late night on the treadmill. Got it in though. And then the next day was out and about, but I forgot to record my video. So I just recorded a video of me running around the house. And then cut to Theo at the end and was like, Dad, what are you doing?
Dad, why are you doing this?
Cyrus still came with me to the track to do my 12x800 workout, which was super fun because he just shot stuff on iPhone and even ran with me for a bit. That was funny. I love that clip. But yeah, I got to make like a little Instagram reel about that. Was really, really happy with that workout. It was a 2-mile warm up, and all of my 800s with a 1-minute walk rest in between were between 235 and 239 every single split. So it felt really good, really strong through that. After the 8th rep, I did have to take a dump. So take that for what it is. There's no way I was going to continue on with those reps without having to relieve myself in that way. So 2-mile cool down after all those reps. Felt incredibly fit, felt incredibly strong. It was very similar to my previous Wednesday workout. After that, I did 11 easy again, but I probably overdid it a little bit. I ran under 7 flat pace. Was just feeling it that day, and it's just one of those mistakes that we often make, going too fast when we think it's easy, because the next day I kind of felt like my legs were lead. I ran with my buddy Kyle, just an easy 7 before I geared up for my long run for the weekend, and that's where things didn't go so great, which is unfortunate because that's now 2 long run workouts in a row, 2 weeks apart, 3 weeks apart, that didn't go really according to plan. It was supposed to be 7 miles of warm up and then 4 miles at 550 per mile pace, 1 mile slow, 4 miles at 550, 1 mile slow, 2 miles at 540 a mile, and then 2 miles slow, to total in 21 miles for the whole long run workout. I went out and did the first 7, again, kind of floating around that 7 flat a mile mark. I was high 130s to low 140s BPM. So on paper, that is technically easy running, but maybe was a bit too fast leading into this. There was a crazy strong headwind that day, and I woke up sick on Friday and Saturday. Yeah, it's Monday now. I'm still feeling it. I'm not 100% on that. I started the rep of 4, hit 548, 541, 546, and then 559 into the headwind, and I knew at the end of that rep, I was like, this is not going to go well. I didn't feel great. The wind was brutal. So I did a 716 cool down mile, and then got back into it with a 545, and then I hit a 555 and just had to stop the workout. I stopped and I walked for 2 minutes to try to gather myself mentally. I put in another easy mile at 717 and then closed out 1 more fast mile at 548. That's when I got back to my house and I stopped the workout again. I went inside and I took my shirt off and like threw it on the ground. I was really angry, and that's just the reality. I was just pissed. I was pissed that I wasn't able to do the workout as prescribed. I was pissed at the elements. I was pissed at being sick. I was pissed at personal things that are happening. And yeah, it's just is what it is. I texted Clark and Sam and was just like, I didn't finish the workout. I don't know what to do. I was sitting on a chair in my house and I knew I needed to finish it in some capacity. So I was like, let me just hit the rest on the treadmill. And so I just geared up after a 5 to 10 minute break and then just sent it on the treadmill and was at least happy with how I closed that out with, I believe it was like a 548, 2 slow miles, and then a couple of like 536, 533, something like that. So closed really hard. Honestly, it felt like out of anger. I know I didn't get the kind of benefit I should have from that workout if I just stuck to the actual plan and just ran it at slower paces. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just kind of how I operate a lot of times. I don't like just running it slower. It's like I'm either going to hit the paces or I'm not. Yeah, maybe it's not beneficial that I treat it that way, but that's kind of how I always operated. Still got the mileage in, just wasn't necessarily at the intensity I wanted. Psychologically, it's hard for me to get through these Wednesday workouts and feel so good about them. I feel like I'm so locked in and ready for sub 235 that I'm hitting these long runs, and whatever the variables might be, whatever excuses I might make, at the end of the day, I'm not hitting them the way I want to be. And so this feels like the first time in any given marathon training block since I went sub 3 where I'm like, I really don't know if this goal is possible or if it's going to happen, but the reality is I have to just keep showing up to have any chance of doing it. So that's what I'm going to keep doing, even on days where I fall apart like that. So it's really hard. And knowing how difficult the Boston course is, which I'm going to touch on in this video, and knowing all the variables that could happen at Boston, I don't know. Like there's no way to predict if because in Chicago, the fall, when I set the goal at 242, I was going into that race feeling like there's no way I'm going over 242. And like the real goal is going to be sub 240. This goal in Boston's like sub 235 feels really like impossible, honestly. It feels like it's not possible. It is, but it's really hard to wrap my brain around the possibility of that. And I feel like the coming weeks, the next 2 weeks are going to help me psychologically figure out if that feels possible for myself. I'm ranting. Anyway, variables that could happen on race day in Boston. Everyone talks about the weather being totally unpredictable. Whether there's a strong headwind the entire time because it's an A to B course going from Hopkinton all the way down to Boston, or if it's rainy or hot. It feels like every other year at Boston, it's just one of those things, you know, or you get a perfect day. But it feels like most of the time, every time I watched in the past 5 years, there's some sort of weird variable if it's super cold or rainy or hot. And yeah, that's something you just can't control. And so what I can control, what are the controllables, is a really good taper, which Clark texted me last night. He's like, we have 10 more runs until we start tapering, which is mind blowing. It feels like that's way too soon, but that's the reality. We just have 2 more weeks of hard work and then 2 weeks of taper into the race. So tapering really well, making sure that I'm getting in the active recovery, staying strong through it, carb loading in the last few days and carb loading well and hydrating super well with electrolytes. That's all I can do to control it. And I've already controlled everything I can in the training block by showing up virtually every single day. I haven't missed a single day yet. Today's the first day where I'm questioning, do I run the full 11 miles easy, or do I kind of take it easier on myself as I get out of this illness? First time I've been sick the entire block. So there's only so much I can do, and all I can do is control the controllables and show up ready to race and race as hard as I possibly can. But the course is what I've been studying over the past week as well. There's a whole 3-hour long video. Somebody in, I think 2021 did a video of the entire race. It was the year they did it in the fall. And it's so helpful, especially on the Newton Hills, 16 to 20. You could see how long it takes to get up the hills, and actually gives you a visualization. And I'll try to link that below if you want to watch it. It really helps in understanding like how long they are. And almost all of them are about half a mile. So it's not crazy, but the reality of the course is that it is net downhill. It's 815 feet of climbing total through 26.2 miles, but it's 1,275 of descent throughout the entire course. And most of that happens in the first 15 miles. So from what I've heard, it's just a comically drastic downhill in the first mile. And you can see it on the elevation chart. It goes from like 450 down to almost 300 flat. There's a couple rolling hills through those first 3 miles, but then it just kind of like bottoms out and flattens out all the way till 10, where there's a slow climb to 11, bottoms and flattens out again to 15. You have a huge downhill again from 15 to 16, and then the Newton Hills start. So there are 4 Newton Hills from 16 to 16 and a half, from 17 and a half to 18, and from 19 to 19 and a half, and then Heartbreak Hill from just past 20 all the way to almost 21. So I know I've heard from other people that the first 2 are really the ones that can zap you and fry you. The third one seems to be not too difficult, and then Heartbreak will just destroy you if you're not prepared for that last push. But the reality is after that, it's net downhill. There's a couple rolling hills through that last 10K, through the last 6 miles. And I know there's a bridge before the Sitco sign at the end. That's hard for people, but nothing in comparison to the Newton Hills. Now there is a DM that I got from Matthew Mateka that I wanted to share with you guys. And I'm just going to read it word for word because he ran 234 in Boston last year, and he's from the Boston area and grew up on the course. And I just wanted to relay all the wisdom he gave me just out of his own time. Really appreciate him doing that. He said a 10 a.m. start is a nuisance, and it can get a bit warm given how much later it is than other races. I'm used to racing at like 7 or 7:30, so that's going to be weird. Between the bus pickup through the race start, it's 3 hours. So you can't underestimate enough how important important it is to have throwaway shoes, clothes, food, or spare hydration too. The field at the start gets really, really muddy, so definitely have spare shoes to wear until you switch into whatever you race in, and everything there is donated to Goodwill. Porta potties situation is worse than Chicago, plus there's nowhere in the trees to go, so get in line again. There's mass urinals and bathrooms right before the start, but after you leave the staging area by the school, so closer to race time, you can't go until officials let you. There isn't much space to warm up in the starting area, so when you get the okay to go from the staging area down to the start, you get about a mile or so to walk or jog. That should be your warm-up, but also note that it's more time on the feet. For the race itself, depending on your qualifying time, and he was assuming I updated mine, which I did. I put my 2:39 Chicago time in. The start can be a mess. The very front corral, wave through bib 1000, will have people between 220 and 245 to 250. So depending on, I think, where they get in, hopefully the faster people are going to be towards the front. So a ton of jockeying in the first few miles because it's so downhill. And he said the video doesn't do it justice, but the elevation chart, it's comically downhill. So don't stress if people go out too fast or too slow. Just don't weave and add extra distance. Things get better around 5 miles. And with respect to congestion, they'll have crowd support almost the entire course, less than New York, but more than Chicago, which is great. This is really important. He said banking time is a fool's errand and what gives Heartbreak Hill its reputation. It's so much better to even split. Last year, he split 1:17:30 or 1:17:20. So right, almost a perfect even split. And then go off effort the second half because he ran 2:34 mid, I think. Really worth just taking the first 16 miles on effort. Mile 16 is a huge downhill. That can screw your race up if you take it too hot. Also good to know. And then digging in as you get to the hills. The first hill is the Route 128 overpass, right past the 25K mark after the big downhill. Tons of exposure to the wind, so be careful, especially because race can string out here. Once you get onto Calm Avenue, you take a right at the fire station, and that's Heartbreak Hill. Just hug runners left and take one hill at a time. They're not that bad or that long, maybe 3-ish minutes at a time. People get crushed by them because they go out way too hard in the first 16 with the downhill and their quads are trashed. There's one flat and net downhill mile. He said, I think after 18 and after the first uphill before your last 2 uphill spurts, including Heartbreak. Once you get to the top of Heartbreak, the last 10K is very downhill and you can make up a ton of time. His fastest 2 miles in the race were 5:38 to 5:40 pace, having finished 2:34 high. They came at mile 21, which is a big downhill mile, and then mile 23, which is another big downhill mile. Again, most people don't take advantage of this last 10K because they burn up in the front half and probably the hills. It's so much more fun, and you can have the mental benefit of catching those people in the last 10K if you're smart. The last few miles are rolling downhill with a handful of bumps. There's a rough stretch right before the Sitco sign, otherwise generally smooth sailing. So much crowd support in that last bit. You'll never feel alone. Unbelievable advice and amazing insight. I've heard a lot of that stuff already, but it's great to have the confirmation as well, especially from someone who is running the exact target time I'm going for. I can't stress enough how thankful and grateful I am to have this community online, to have folks who are willing to put in the time and energy to message me something like that or offer resources. And so I wanted to extend that to any of you guys who are running Boston as well or want to run it in the future. And hopefully this can be a resource for you as well. So thank you, Matthew, so much for that information. And yeah, if you have any other insight, like feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'm all ears on anything regarding the race. I feel like I have a good grasp on what it is now and what to expect. And I feel like the last 2 weeks are going to be helpful in the training process by getting more hills in and getting myself accustomed to feeling some more of that elevation, which I have done a bit in this block, but could use some more. The last question really is am I ready? And I've already kind of covered it, but I don't know. I sincerely do not know if I'm ready to meet this goal. I know a lot of people will grill me for not having a positive attitude because some people thrive on I'm going to do it, I'm going to manifest it, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. And maybe I'll get there. I might. But the reality is I can't change how I feel about it based on the experiences I have in my training or how I just feel based off of the fitness I have. Like Koros still has me at a 2:38 marathon, but I haven't really done a tune-up race. I don't think I've hit a long run that shows what I'm capable of yet. The stars haven't aligned on those. And the reality is the stars might not align on race day. They just might not. I'm starting to get to this time for myself in a sub 235 in that zone where things like variables like weather and wind and maybe how I'm rested or tapered those things can drastically affect the outcome of the race. And that's not lost on me. Again, I'm going to control as much as I can to have the best outcome in the race and just to race my butt off. Like, I want to go out there and absolutely send it as hard as I can, within reason, with strategy, not going out too hard in the first half, taking the hills one at a time and cruising and hopefully negative splitting in that last 10K as I have that net downhill in that last 6 miles. So those are all my thoughts right now. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you listen to this episode, just me sitting here and talking, I think the running community is really cool as well, in that y'all are willing to just sit through and listen to some random runners' thoughts about their race. We're really excited to bring the last few episodes to you. In the coming ones, we want to share when the Boston Shakeout run will be, other events that are happening around Boston. It feels like everyone's going to be in town, so that's incredibly exciting. And yeah, I'll see you there on those episodes. Till the next time Floberg runs, I will see you there, and I'll probably be running. Okay, goodbye.